Good afternoon, everybody. This is Chris Scully and Bob Spitz coming to you
Good
live from
afternoon.
Thrive. And today we're going to talk about setting goals for 2023 because we're hitting the end of 2022 really fast.
Yeah, like in about 3 hours.
It seems like it, right?
Yep.
All right. So let's
Chris, why
start
don't we
off.
talk about what the hell a goal is?
Yeah, exactly. So, and why do we set goals?
Yeah.
Bob, go ahead. I'll just chime in on that one.
Well, what is a goal? A goal is something you're trying to achieve. It's something big. It could also be something small. It could be long term, it could be short term, but basically it's an idea, it's a vision that you have that you want to achieve. It's win the Super Bowl. It's not just win this game.
Right. And there can be your own personal goals as a shop owner, and there can be goals that you set for your team that get your team motivated and engaged. And those are different. For example, you might have a goal as a shop owner to be able to take a month off, which is a great goal, especially
That'd
if
be
your
wonderful.
shop has not been operational enough for you to do that before. But that's not a goal that's necessarily going to motivate your team.
Right. That's up there with I want to make $1 million and get the heck out of here.
Exactly.
Come on, guys, get behind me here. Well, some shops they might get behind you.
Yeah. And then kick you.
Yeah, and they kick you. That's right. But it also has to align with your family goals.
Right. So there's a lot of different angles to setting goals and why you're setting goals. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. You set goals that motivate yourself. You can set goals that motivate your team. You can set goals that align with something that you're, like you said, your family and are in sync with that. And all of those are valid goals.
That's right.
And then let's talk a little bit about short-term versus long-term, because that's another aspect of goals. You could set a short-term goal to, I don't know, lose 10 pounds in a month or two. Or you could set a long-term goal of you want to have your shop completely operational and open a second shop.
Or a short-term goal of I want to get off the front counter.
Right.
Get off the front counter. Right. Stop the day-to-day management of the shop.
Right.
Well, what does that align to? Okay, that's a fine thing to say, and it's a fine goal, but does that align with a bigger picture?
Right.
What are you trying to accomplish here?
And one of the things I noticed long time ago is that a lot of our clients come into our program, and one of their goals is to get the business able to run on its own, or to be operational, or some wording along those lines, right?
Yep.
And that's as far as they get with that. They have this idea, this concept of what they want. And I want to talk about that because that concept isn't yet a goal, because it's not defined enough. If you want your business to be operational, first you kind of have to understand what that means and what it means for your business. But also, if you don't put a date on it, it's going to be really hard to achieve.
Absolutely. And if you don't have something that you're going to, it's almost impossible to achieve. Freedom from without freedom to.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. It just it's kind of like, you've got this beautiful car that you're in the middle of restoring. And I've seen this over and over again. And it never gets completely done because you haven't decided what are you going to do next? What's your next project? So you're not going to let go of this project because you have no new project to go to.
Right.
And boy, do I see that with shop owners. They say they want to get operational, but they have no new game to go to. And so they never quite get there. In fact, sometimes they introvert their attention back into the shop and mess it all up.
Yeah. In fact, it's kind of like the the way a lot of people I know, a lot of my friends, retirement's a 4-letter word to them because to them it means not having a game to play,
Right.
not
Oh,
having
exactly.
something to do. And that state is really not very attractive to people. So if you're
No,
going
and statistically, Chris, look what happens when people retire and they don't have a new game to go to
to, they deteriorate terribly,
quickly.
very terribly. And and this is an important point for all of our audience. Like if your goal is to get your shop operational, you have to have a second goal that goes with that, which is start playing another game that really interests you, that you want to go to. So you're able to transition from working in your shop all day and turning that over to working somewhere else or doing some other activity that you love as much as going to the shop.
Yeah,
Then you can easily get your shop operational
absolutely.
and you can go out of it without falling into the trap of what am I going to do now?
And Chris, sometimes it's something that you thought of when you're in your 20s or 30s, and now your 50s or your 60s, and you've kind of forgotten about that.
Mm-hmm.
You said someday, boy, I'd really like to go do that. I'd really
Right.
like to be that, right? And
Yeah,
life has a tendency of kicking us around, and then we kind of forget about those things. And hey, dust them off, figure it out, right? It's never too late.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that you mentioned to me right before we came on the air was if you've done our planning for success workshop or a succession and exit planning workshop, you should have long-term goals set and a plan to achieve them, right?
Hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
what if you did that, but you haven't reviewed it maybe since you did it?
Right. You put it up on the shelf and there
Yeah.
it's at.
Or it's a Word document in your computer somewhere that you haven't opened since you wrote it. You haven't even printed it out.
Yes.
So there's a point to that, which is those long-term plans, first of all, need to be reviewed periodically. You need to tweak them. Circumstances in your life or your shop may have changed, necessitating change to those plans. But the other point, equally important, is we are coming up on the end of the year. And if you created a 5-year plan, then
Well, you got 4 years left.
right. And your short-term goals for this year should be based on achieving that long-term goal that you set for your 5-year plan. Because if those don't align, everything's going to get pretty wonky.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this goes beyond wonky. It gets destructive,
Right.
right? And I've seen marriages fall apart because of misaligned goals. I've seen shops just wither away because of misaligned goals. So yeah, you need to review that plan that you wrote. You got to remember, a goal without a plan is a wish,
Right.
right? And a plan without action is just a wish.
Exactly. Which also is a really important part of setting goals. It's not just you write down a goal. Well, hopefully you write it down.
Yeah.
But it's not just you set the goal. For the goal to really mean anything, you have to take action on it. Otherwise, it's just some random idea, really.
Yeah.
Um, and that's an important thing to take into account as you're going through this normal process that people do toward the end of the year, and certainly the beginning of the new year with New Year's resolutions and so on. It's set the goal, yes. Have a plan, yes. The last step is do it.
And for many people, that means have a coach.
Yes.
And whether that's a physical trainer or a nutritional coach or your business coach, have someone who's going to poke at you and get you over those hurdles when you don't feel like doing it, but it's got to get done,
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
you know? And, in
Now,
our succession and exit planning, we talk about the best time to start your succession and exit plan is the day you opened your business,
absolutely.
and to run your business like you plan to sell it.
Right.
So it's always in that kind of great condition.
Hmm.
You see this is true with people in their personal lives too. And they'll let their property deteriorate, and only when they're thinking about selling it do they spruce it all up and go, well, why didn't you spruce it up and be able to live in a really nice place for all those years?
Yeah, that's so true. I see it all the time.
Yeah,
That's actually really a great point.
yeah, it is. So, you want to look at that because I'm going to give you a goal right now. Work out your succession exit plan, right? That should be a priority for you. That's something you need to look at because there's an awful lot to that. There's
Yes.
many, many moving parts to pulling that off. And well, you got to get busy. And doing our succession exit plan workshop helps tremendously in figuring that out.
Yeah, that's something that I think a lot of business owners, including myself and past businesses I've had, that's advice that many of us wish we'd gotten a long time ago. Because if you're in business, you should already have your exit plan, and you should be working toward that exit plan from day one, which means that based on what we've talked about so far, that any short or medium range goals that you set should lead you to accomplishing that exit plan.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
they should align with that.
Yeah.
And that's a really important point. Everybody keep that in mind as you look at these things. And if you don't have an exit plan, start there.
Yeah. And if you don't put it in writing, you're kidding yourselves. Because you can't, it's so hard to look at things that are in your head. And it's very hard to prioritize them when they're in your head or edit them. Or while actually editing them happens really quick, right?
Right. You just change your mind a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. But if you have it down on the computer, it's so easy to then examine it and evaluate it and prioritize it and move things around until you go, yeah, that'll get me there.
Right.
Right. And, you take those really big chunks and you start breaking them down into something that you can accomplish within a short period of time.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we said that we were going to talk about how to set goals. So I want to spend a little bit of time on that. And I think one of the things that trips people up in setting goals is being too general.
Yes.
It's like, I want to make a lot of money. I want to increase sales in my shop. I want to
Right.
be more efficient. And that's all good, but it's not specific enough as a goal.
No, it's not. And it also, why do you want to do that?
Right.
What, by doing that, will allow you to do what? And that you have to name.
Exactly. And that's something that is a very powerful aspect of goal setting. If you don't identify your why behind some of those types of goals, then they don't necessarily motivate you as an
No,
individual shop owner, and they certainly won't motivate your team. But if you have a really good why, one that gets you out of bed, that gets you excited to go to work, that ideally gets your team excited to play the game, then That's
You have a
how,
much
that's
better
how you
chance
get
of
there.
accomplishing it.
Exactly.
You know, we have a number of shops who successfully opened up additional locations this past year. And that's a wonderful goal. But what has to be put in place before you can do that? Because we've seen folks also do that incorrectly.
Right.
And now instead of having one decent shop, you got two shops that are running poorly,
Right.
right? And what does
And
it take
it's,
to be franchisable?
yeah, and that's brutal on the shop owners. If you've got more than one shop and neither one is operational.
Yes.
Yeah, that sets yourself, that's setting yourself up for misery.
Yeah.
But that is part of the goal setting aspect of it, is having an understanding of what it takes to get there, because there are sometimes things that have to get done before you can get to where you want to go. And for a second shop, it's get the first one operational.
Right. Okay. So
You
what
know?
does that take?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
So
now we're getting into planning.
exactly. Another one, which I touched on at the beginning of the show, is there's time involved. And if you set dates, you're more likely to achieve them than if you don't. And the date is not necessarily something like it has to be a certain time frame or whatever, but it has to be something that's realistic. And you might have a goal of getting your shop operational or opening a second shop. And if you're still writing service and you have one technician, or you're still turning wrenches in the back and you happen to have a service advisor, and that's what you've got right now, then setting a goal to open a second shop by the end of this year might be a little unrealistic,
Right.
because of
And
the amount of work that's involved in getting there.
that's right. And I think, Chris, something that helps tremendously to setting those goals is knowing how to work with timelines,
Right.
which we teach in those workshops,
Yes.
how to set up and work a timeline.
And it's really critical. And also just some of the goals that people might set, they don't necessarily require a lot of work, but they don't put dates on them. So they could have accomplished them sooner. This is a flip side of the same discussion, right? You could have accomplished it sooner if you'd set a deadline and gone for it,
Right.
but you didn't. So it just kept getting pushed out and pushed out and pushed out until eventually the end of the year passed and you didn't achieve it, but there was really no reason you couldn't have.
Yeah. And you know, the
Except
old
you didn't
saying,
decide.
pressure makes diamonds.
Exactly.
And when you set a time, you're putting a little pressure on yourself.
That's right. And
You know?
that's really important.
It is.
Now, we should probably talk about the importance of accountability when it comes to your goals.
Yeah.
Because it is a really important point. You mentioned a little while ago, once you do set that date, then having a coach, or whether it's with a personal goal such as your health, having a personal trainer or a nutrition coach or somebody like that, or if it's your shop and having a business coach that will hold you accountable to doing the things that you need to do to achieve your goals. It's really important, because so many times what'll happen is you'll get caught up in the day-to-day, or you'll get distracted by some other shiny object or whatever, and next thing you know, you're off track.
Yeah. And it's so easy to get to the end of the day and go, I'm just tired.
Right.
I don't feel like going to the gym.
Mm-hmm. I've never done that.
No.
Now that's something I think we can all relate to, because it happens all the time. And that's also something that happens in the shop when you're trying to work on your goals for your business. Something comes up, or you don't have it as part of your weekly plan. And by the time you think about it again, you're tired, you're maybe a little bit annoyed because you've been putting out fires all day, and You just want to go have a beer or something and you don't work on your goals.
You know, just as an aside, Chris, Sari Edwards and I used to joke about this all the time, but it was so true. And that is, you must have fun at least once a
Absolutely.
day. At least once a day, anything that will make you smile,
Oh, I
right?
totally agree with that.
Yeah,
That's absolutely true.
yeah. And if that's just getting away from the shop for a while and taking a drive out in the country or, you know, whatever it takes, right? To just alleviate some of that day-to-day pressure while you're trying to get operational. You know, once you do have your stage 4 and you do have a solid management team in place, boy, you've bought yourself a ton of time,
Yeah.
just a ton of time, right? But one of the big problems that I've seen and you've seen, Chris, is one of the challenges, you know, because that could be easily be a goal, get to stage 4. Why? Well, you got to define why do you want to get to stage 4. But getting to stage 4 is the ability and the willingness to let go. I've seen
Ooh.
more shop owners fail to let go of that front counter,
Oh, yeah.
you know, and then they keep getting dragged back into it because they won't let go. And just like managing the day-to-day shop, right? They won't let go.
Yeah, that's something I've seen. In fact, I know of a situation right now where that's occurring, and it's it's hard, especially if you're used to being the guy
Hmm.
and the shop is your baby, right? You gave it life. You're the one who's been shepherding it through whatever you've gone through to get to that point, and turning it over to somebody else is a huge leap.
Yeah. And that's why having a good goal is something that would make you be willing to do that. And of course, having a coach there stomping on your fingers, going, let go, let go, let go,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, that's really,
is
really
key.
critical. Yeah, it
So make
is.
sure that whatever goal you're setting really does light you up. It's like, yeah, I really want to do that. Yeah, I really want to be there. Yeah, I want to be in that condition. That's what I want, right? Because if you name that well and that's truly true what you want, well, then you're more likely to let go of the things that you're doing right now.
Yeah, that's really true. And in fact, that last point is true even of some of the shorter term goals that you might have, and even personal goals. If it's not something that you really want, that you would, let's say, practically kill for, it's not going to motivate you enough to make the changes that you need to make in order to achieve it.
That's right. So you got to watch out for other people's ideas of what your goal should be, whether that be a father, a brother, an uncle, a wife, whoever.
Yeah.
It's not their goal, it's your goal.
And I think that's so important, that goals are so personal. We might have similar goals, let's say you and I, right?
Hmm.
But how I word it and what it means to me is going to be different than how you frame it and what it means to you.
Right.
And I can't,
Your concept is your concept, and my concept's my concept.
yeah, and if I try to get you to go with whatever my concept is and think that that's going to motivate you, it would be wrong. It
Hmm.
won't, because it's not personal enough to you. It's not what lights you up.
Right.
And that's, I think, a really important point for everybody who's going to get into setting goals, short term or long term. If you get a goal down on paper and you set a time and you're not excited about it, you're not done,
That's right. You're not done.
because it should excite you. It should motivate you. It should make you want to make changes in your shop or in your life in such a way that you'll be able to achieve that goal and get someplace that you've never been before.
right? You know, something that is critical for any executive owner, and that is time to imagine.
Yeah.
And this is something we used to do at the seminar, in the old seminar days, and we actually still do it in Essentials of Shop Management.
Right.
And that is, you know, if you just closed your eyes for a moment and cleared your head and imagine what your life would be like if everything was the way you want it to be, what would that look like?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that gives you an idea of what you want and what areas of your life you need to concentrate on, because that's your vision. And having
Exactly.
that vision is critical.
And that's a really key point to setting goals, everybody, is if you can't do that, and then you got to make the time to do that, because your goals will come from that.
They
And
will.
it is about what you want. It's not about what anybody else wants.
Right.
You're the shop owner, you're setting goals, and it should be about what you want, what that ideal life, that ideal shop that you would want to achieve.
Hmm.
That's where your goals are.
Yep.
It's right there.
Yeah. So after this, after you've listened to this talk, please do that. Just turn off everything and just close your eyes. And if everything was exactly the way you want it to be in your life, what would that look like?
Yep.
Yeah, it's powerful. Imagination is powerful.
It's a great thing. And on that note, we are nearing the top of the hour and running out
Holy
of
cow, we
time.
are.
So next week we'll be off because it's Thanksgiving Day, Thanksgiving weekend, and we'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll be talking a little bit more about goals. And I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and have a great weekend.
Absolutely. And if you have any questions or comments or realizations from this talk, let us know, because we'll take those up in the next session.
All right. Have a great one, everybody.
Yeah, happy
Bye-bye.
Thanksgiving.